97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Aam Caplan, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
We expect to win every time we step on the field. That's just the mindset and the culture that we have.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast and brought to you locally by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now. They'll match your first deposit up to $250. Must be 21 or older to play. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Aam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast is with us. A plethora of information today as the Eagles get ready for a dreadful Cowboys team. But can't overlook them. Got to start stacking up wins. And there's a stretch of games, Adam, of 5 for the Eagles coming up where it's going to be hard to find a win. So when you have a winnable game on the schedule, it's imperative that you get one. And it looks like they are going to be as healthy as they've been in a long time for this one. So let's get into it. Let's start with the offensive side of the ball. What's Miles Sanders looking like for Sunday? He seems like a guy who, of all the guys coming back, he would be the guy that you're probably least optimistic about.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment, Mike. Good to be with you guys. Yeah, so he's got this knee injury, which we're not completely sure about yet. So we will try to figure out what that is. We're going to try to get that for our show on Sunday night. By the way, our pregame show is from 5 to 7. So we're trying to figure it out. It's a minor injury, I'm told. I just don't know exactly what it is. But, yeah, of the starters, I'm not counting Alshon Jeffery. He's on a different area. But the fact of the matter is Miles Sanders has not done anything yet. And by the way, tomorrow's the light workout. It's about an hour. So if he doesn't work there, he certainly would not be playing.
So he hasn't done anything this week?
Not that I know of. Now, the Eagles have not released their injury report. I want to see I want to see how they list him, and then I need to find out if he was limited, what he did. And remember, they're practicing indoors on that turf.
All right, so if he's out, I guess that's Boston Scott again. Now, Boston was a bigger part of the offense. I like the way they used him against the Giants. Would you anticipate a lot of Boston Scott if Miles Sanders is out?
Yeah, it's not going to change. It's Boston Scott up first. Corey Clement, for whatever reason, Mike, the coaches simply do not want to give him a lot of work. I mean, he is healthy this season. He has not been the same player he once was. I don't quite understand why. But he had 2 rushes last week, 1 catch for 12 yards. That is seemingly is not good enough. And remember, Jason Huntley also got in there and had that really nice 10-yard run. But they really do need a power back. That's the one thing that they lack. And if Sanders were to suffer an injury that would keep him out for a long time, I think they're going to really have to look at investing in a running back who's a little bit bigger physically.
All right, let's go to, you mentioned Jeffrey. He is not the foot. It's a calf problem, and he's kind of interesting because you got the trade deadline coming up and then Jalen Reagor. So the 2 wideouts here. Looks like Jeffrey out. What do you think about Reagor?
Yeah, so the interesting thing with Jeffrey is they did take the foot off the injury report. So that is not the issue. It's just the calf. And, look, unless he takes a lot of reps this week, and so far he's just not going to play. So remember, he got hurt last week. So we don't know exactly where he's at with that. He obviously wouldn't start anyway. He would just, if he could play, he would be active as a backup to Fulgham at the X position. Jalen Reagor is going to play, barring a setback. Unless something happens in Thursday's practice today or tomorrow, he'll play. But the issue there would be, from a conditioning standpoint, how many reps can he take, being that he's been out for nearly 6 weeks? That is what the coaches and their trainers have to decide, how many reps he can handle from a conditioning standpoint, and that's the only challenge right now, as we know it, with his thumb.
Yeah, that was going to be, my thought process on Reagor. It's like, yeah, he's coming back, but how much can you expect him to do based off of the conditioning? But how about Dallas Goedert? What's the update on him?
Yeah, so this is interesting. He doesn't just have, guys, a broken ankle. He actually has a high ankle sprain. He told the media that today in this session. So that issue is a little worse than we thought. Yet he was designated for returns, which means the Eagles have 3 weeks to evaluate him. Now, he's a long shot for this week. I'm not going to rule him out. Why am I not going to rule him out? Because football players are a different breed. If he gets cleared medically, I could see him having a limited role in this game. Richard Rodgers, to me, obviously is healthier. Richard Rodgers has been a nice surprise for the club, but the thought process, Jeff and I have talked about it on our show, it was about weeks 10 or 11, not so much about coming back for week 8, but I've learned my lesson with saying players can't come back early. I mean, it's just every once in a while. Look, Rager's coming back a week or two early. Again, barring something unforeseen, he will play on Sunday night. So guys can come back early sometimes.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about that because Rieger, Fulgham, if Goddard plays, and then once they get Sanders back, I mean, the expectations for this offense, I guess, has to elevate.
Yeah, it's funny. So I had said something on Twitter yesterday, and it got, I don't know, something like 1,000 likes. What I said was, after the bye, the Eagles have a legit chance to have a lot of really good pass targets around. And by the way, the Eagles just released their injury report for today, and we will take a look at it as we speak here, guys. Let's see who didn't work today.
It's a live injury report right here.
Yes, the live injury report is this. Jernard Avery, who, by the way, he's not playing anymore. He was only on specials last week. Vinny Curry with the illness, Jack Driscoll with the ankle, Craig James has a thigh injury. He actually would be playing right now, guys. Probably is their third or fourth corner, but he's hurt. Sanders did not practice today. Lane Johnson didn't practice with the high ankle and the MCL sprain, so not looking good for Miles Sanders.
You skipped over one, though. What happened to Geary?
Yeah, hang on. No, I'm getting to it. Nate Geary did not practice. He came out with an ankle injury from last week's game. I know fans are, they shouldn't applaud when someone's hurt, but I understand the venom that the fans have for Geary. And by the way, I am told that they're going to have T.J. Edwards for this game. He has a hamstring strain, so he's a grade 1 hamstring strain. So if Gary's not playing, it's T.J. Edwards and Alex Singleton should be the two main linebackers for this game. And Alex Singleton, by the way, maybe their best linebacker right now. And by the way, the other players, Malik Jackson limited again. Lane Johnson. Actually, wait a minute. What did they double list this? Lane Johnson actually got out there. Let me update that. Let me correct that. He did get out there. He was limited. Crevon LeBlanc has a quadriceps injury. He was limited. So the only thing I needed to correct was Lane Johnson was out there in limited fashion. That does give him, guys, a chance to play. On Sunday night.
So if he does play, do you think Mailata would be playing left tackle and Jason Peters would be playing right guard? Because we did see yesterday that Jason Peters was at left tackle, Mailata at right tackle.
Yeah, that's going to be a coaching decision about where they think he is physically with that toe injury. I thought all along it would be week 10 for him, not week 8, but you know what? He's out there. And by the way, the players who are on injury reserve but designated for a return are not on the injury report because they were not on the roster. They're on a reserve list. So we have no idea right now how much he worked, but we will, on our pregame show Sunday, we're going to have everything. We'll learn more. In fact, we probably will learn more for our show that drops tomorrow at 6 a.m., a little bit how Lane looked in his limited practicing. And remember, though, the problem is I've been on the indoor turf, it is unbelievably hard. I have a partially torn meniscus in my left knee, very small. I've had it for well over a decade. I used to actually have to leave the indoor bubble because it would hurt my left knee. So I don't know how in the world when you're coming back from a knee sprain that would feel good, but hey, it is what it is.
So let's look at this offensive line because do the Eagles feel like the second half of the year with this offensive line that they're getting a good, healthy offensive line back? You're going to have Peters, Johnson, Kelsey. What's up with Sayamala and I guess Lane Johnson?
Yeah, so Isaac Sayamala has a knee sprain. I'm told I don't know which ligament's been impacted. But, yeah, he's not playing this week, and we're not sure exactly after the bye when he'll be ready, whether it be weeks 10, 11, or 12. But until he practices, we're just not going to know. And Lane, look, after the bye, at the very least, as long as nothing else happens, and we always have to say this, every week something seems to happen. But if all but Sayamala are back after the bye, yeah, and Driscoll's injury is a minor ankle injury, he should be back after the bye. So, yeah, they have a chance to have a pretty good offensive line here. But the thing, and you asked it, Mike, for the life of me, I just don't know why they don't move Peters inside to right guard and then Herbig to left guard. Nate Herbig's been a good find for them as an undrafted free agent. But to me, Jordan Mailata has shown, I know he didn't play well last week. He certainly, with the 3 starts, this was not his best. He wasn't bad. He just didn't play that well.
Right.
I don't know why they don't want to see this thing through, but we're going to learn more because of all the moving parts here with the injuries. Nothing, by the way, is certain with their offensive line this week.
Yeah, because it would seem if you had Mailata play left tackle, when Sayamala comes back playing that left guard, Kelsey, and then Peters and Johnson next to each other, I mean, that's about as close as the line you thought you were going to have, save for Mailata instead of Dillard.
Yeah, and when you look for the future, here's the other reason why they should be playing Mailata at left tackle. Look, the two hardest matchups he could possibly have, he aced the test. He was terrific against Pittsburgh and Baltimore. When I say terrific, see, here's what happened against Baltimore. Because Jamon Brown was so bad, it ruined their whole offensive line. It hurt the timing. Mailata was not a problem in that game. He actually played fairly well. He was really good against Pittsburgh. This game, he dropped off a little bit, but he wasn't bad. So they really need to see this thing through from a developmental standpoint. They got to know what they have in him. And that's why I think if you play him at left tackle, then you get a grade the rest of the season. Then you go into next year's offseason. Either you trade Dillard or you let Dillard and Mailata compete for the left tackle job.
I think that's going to be an interesting offseason storyline, by the way, that what they do with Dillard. I mean, they traded up to get this guy, and now he might get beat out by a seventh-round rugby player. I think is pretty interesting. Aam Caplan, Inside the Birds podcast, drops tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Let's look at defense. What about getting Malik Jackson back? How does that look for Sunday night?
Yeah, he's still limited, still considered questionable at this point. It's good. It's a good sign that he's out there. The Eagles do feel pretty good about their depth, despite losing the kid that they lost for the season to the biceps.
Ridgeway.
Yeah, Hassan Ridgeway. Thank you. Yeah, despite losing him, they still feel pretty good about it. And remember, they could use Vinny Curry nickel inside if they need to. That's available to them, and they've done it. They've used Brandon Graham inside if they have to. And the Eagles are super deep at the end. Really, even without Jernard Avery, if he doesn't play. They're still legit deep at the end, and they all could play. And Josh Webb, by the way, I'm told teams they've looked into trying to trade for him. The Eagles told him he's not available, so that's how much they think of Josh Webb. It's been a really good story. But D tackle, it's just going to. We need to see what Jackson does tomorrow. I want to see if he could do more tomorrow. I know it's a late practice, and they're probably going to be indoors because the rain's not supposed to stop until the early afternoon. But he needs to get out there tomorrow to give them an idea of whether he can play or not.
All right, you just mentioned Sweat. Are the Eagles receiving calls? Are they making calls? The deadline's Tuesday. There's been some buzz that they're looking at linebackers. So where does that stand with the bye week coming up? This is a perfect time for them to make a deal because they do have a bye coming up.
Right. And remember, you got a 6-day acclimation period with COVID. So, if you trade for him by Tuesday – or hopefully by Monday, you could still get him in your building before the game and maybe potentially play. But, yeah, I've said all along that I thought if the right deal comes where there's no cap impact for next season, as a matter of fact, what they'd love to do is player for player. The question is, though, if you're the Eagles, who could you possibly trade because of all their injuries that you could afford to trade, where it's an even swap for money? Because the big thing, Mike, now is the Eagles are going to probably do more restructures. They need to move as much cap space into 21 as possible. And they're just because they were unable to get the Zach Ertz extension done, where they would be able to lower his cap number this year, then move cap space to next year. It's just going to be tough for them. So the Eagles have some tough decisions here because the division is so bad. Like you look at the team 2-4-1. Well, if a team was running away with it, then I think they might be more of sellers. I think based on a couple teams that I know have talked to the Eagles, they didn't seem like they were listening, and they were seeing what the other teams had that could possibly help them. I just think it's going to come down to this. We saw the Niners do it. The Niners brought in a kid, Willis, from the Jets, who they had high grade on for the 17 draft. Well, this is what you look for. Like Jernard Avery, the Eagles really liked him coming out of the 18 draft. It took them 2 years to get him. They tried to get him from John Dorsey, the GM, and he didn't want to trade him until last year at the trade deadline. The Eagles had to give him a 4 for him. Well, Jernard Avery, to me, is a trade piece. He's not even playing on defense. He only played special teams last week. He put the incredible tape against the Niners together. To me, they ought to try to move him, but I'm not the Eagles, so it's up to them. But he would be absolutely a trade piece because he has some value to a team that runs a 34 front.
Let me ask you this, Adam. The team's 2-4-1. Everyone's making fun of the division. It's awful. It's obviously in play. Do the Eagles feel they are as bad as the 2-4-1 looks?
No, they don't. They know the injury situation has been a big part of it. They are aware that you can't keep going with the 4 backups on the offensive line and function like you normally would on offense. And I would tell you that they're very happy with Darius Slay. They've raved about him. The area where they know they need to get better plays at linebacker and getting more consistent pass rush. I think like last week against the Giants, they were good but not great. They should have dominated more. They weren't bad, but if that pass is completed, if Evan Ingram doesn't drop it, they're likely going to lose the game. That shouldn't have happened, and they gave up some plays they probably shouldn't have. So, yes, injuries are a big part of it, but we know that that's not the only issue here. There's been inconsistent play from certain players, and they need to get more out of certain players. But then there's stories like Travis Fulgham, which you can't make up. I mean, this is the Mailata story's been terrific, but the Fulgham story is the story of the season for this football team offensively.
No doubt. So I asked that question, and the follow-up is they have a stretch of games coming up with Cleveland and Seattle and New Orleans and Green Bay and Arizona, where I would imagine most people aren't giving them a shot. Do they feel, if healthy, they are on the level of those teams?
They know they could be much better, but I remember, it's funny you bring this up, I remember having a talk with the Eagles prior to the trade deadline, probably like 2 or 3 days before the deadline in 2017, and I remember talking to someone in their front office, and I said, I know you guys are a little bit better than we all expected. Do you think you need to go for it? And this person said, that's exactly what we're talking about. We're trying to be honest with ourselves. And the response was, yes, we know we think we're good. We need to get better. That's when they made the trade for Jay Ajayi, who I would argue, I don't know if they win the Super Bowl without him, in terms of, or at least getting that far, because he was very integral to the run game. Sure, Blunt was good, but they really needed Ajayi's juice. And, quite ironically, that's really what they need right now. They need a guy with size at running back. I really do think they need. And Moshe and I are going to put some names on our show tomorrow morning. You're going to hear when it drops at 6 a.m. I got 3 or 4 names that I really like. One of them I already talked about, Bo Scarborough, who's a former Alabama back, who's with the Lions, who was inactive last week. I don't know why. I mean, the Lions don't need him. You see what DeAndre Swift is doing with Adrian Peterson. That, to me, would cost them absolutely nothing. They probably maybe they do a 1-for-1 trade. This is me speaking here. I'm not saying the Eagles like him. What I'm telling you is they need a back at 220 pounds who could pound it in there when they get a lead in the fourth quarter.
There were some reports that teams tried to make calls on Zach Ertz before hitting the IR. Do you think there would have been a chance that he would be out of here if that wasn't the case?
I do. Yeah, I do. Again, I'm told they have not talked. They had not talked. They won't talk because Zach wanted to move on because the season started. They had not talked contracts since the mid-August, and I could tell you guys, the real issue with the contract structure was for 2022 and the Eagles' offer. The thing is, the Eagles wanted the ability to walk away from after 21. That's just not going to be amenable to a veteran player. And it was never really about 21 because he was under contract at 21. It was about 22, and that was the issue. And that's, by the way, and they can't because they cannot trade him because of the IR rules this season. He is designated with a minor injury. Although I'm told it's a 4 to 6 week injury, it must be 6 weeks or more for it to be a major injury, and because of that, they cannot trade him. So, look, Zach, we'll see by the way, Zach hopefully will be back weeks 11 or 12. With those, he could return by rules 11. But, Hunter, to answer your question, I do think there was a real possibility had he not gotten hurt. But, look, we'll see. I mean, this year they have him, and we'll see what happens in the 21 offseason.
Hey, real quick, the fact that Goddard spoke today on Zoom, does that give you any insight on him playing?
I mean, again, as I said earlier, it's good that he was out there. When they designated him for return on Wednesday, and that starts the 3-week window, I mean, that was good. It was encouraging. But when he said he also had a high ankle sprain in addition to the fracture, I'm like, right. Why is he even out there?
Right.
I'm normally, surprised, but look,
I know the NBA, they don't, like, if you're hurt and you're not going to play, you don't have to talk. So I was just wondering if football in the NFL,
right,
like if he's...
Right. Well, no, they do. It's funny. More often than not, they don't let injured players talk in the NFL. But they did, and that, maybe there's some optimism, but I need to get more clarification on where he's at with it, just from pain tolerance to what he can do and can't do. But, yeah, it is surprising, though. Based on what he had said today, that even gives more context. I mean, he has a tibia fracture and a high ankle sprain. Like,
Jeez.
Why is he coming back within 4 weeks? But, again, these are to close this off, guys, football players are a little bit of a different breed there.
There's no question. Adam Caplan at Caplan NFL. The Inside the Birds podcast drops tomorrow morning at 6. The Inside the Birds pregame show is live at 5 o'clock on Sunday ahead of Sunday Night Football. You can get that on your social media platforms. And Adam Caplan, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Thank you.
Guys, thank you.
There he goes. Adam Caplan here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN.